When cleaning the trumpet, these are the items that I need. Obviously the trumpet, paper towels, a trumpet cleaning snake, a cleaning rod, a sponge. I prefer one that has the soft side and the rough side just in case. Good valve oil. I recommend blue juice, but any good valve oil will work. And then tuning slide lubricant. I use white lithium grease, although you can certainly buy many different types. I start by removing everything from the trumpet. You'll notice that on paper towels I have labeled valves 1, 2, and 3, and I have left sufficient space for other valves and slides. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the main tuning slide, and I'm going to place it where I do not have a number. At this point, everything else on the trumpet needs to be affiliated with its particular slide, and I keep everything in order. I'm going to start with the first slide, the first valve. I'm going to unscrew the top, unscrew the bottom. Now, depending on the type of trumpet that you have, you may have a spring in the casing. This does not. And then I'm going to remove the tuning slide that's affiliated with the first valve. Because I don't have a valve in here, I do not need to push the valve down to pull that out. If the valve was still in, I would need to push down the valve so that I wouldn't create any back pressure. I'm going to do the same thing with the other two valves. With the trumpet submerged completely in the soapy water, after I've let it sit for a couple of minutes, I am going to take my trumpet snake and I am going to go through all of the tubing and scrub it thoroughly. My goal is to push any junk that's in there out. You'll notice that the snake has brushes on both ends. I'll clean in a single direction, pulling the snake all the way out. And then I like to go in the reverse to make sure that I have really cleaned it. Once I have gone through and cleaned the entire trumpet, I will let it sit for a couple of minutes before I rinse it out. To thoroughly clean each valve, I will take the tuning slide associated with that valve, the valve itself, and the bottom cap, and I will clean each of those, but I will only do a single valve at a time. If I do more than one valve at a time, I could easily confuse the valves or the casings, and I want to make sure that I don't do that. I'll put the valve tuning slide in the water, the end cap, and then I will remove the upper cap, the top cap, and the felt, and put the valve into the water. I will let it soak for a couple minutes. I will then take my sponge and I will thoroughly wash each of the items I just put in the water, and then I will rinse them. I want to make sure that I thoroughly clean each of the pieces I've put in. So I will take my sponge and I will gently wipe the outside of the valve casing. Then I'll take my snake and I'll thoroughly clean the inside of the valve casing. I'll then put that back in the sink. I'll do the same with the valve itself. I'll clean out all 3 holes. And then I'll take my sponge and I'll gently clean the exterior surface, including the bottom and the top. And then I will take the bottom cap and I will clean the bottom cap. This is where a lot of the dirt and debris from typical day-to-day cleanings and oilings ends up, and I don't want that back in the valve, so I will make sure that I get that clean. I'll rinse each piece thoroughly, put it back in its order on the paper towel, repeat the process for the second and third valves. After I have washed and cleaned each piece thoroughly, I want to make sure that I thoroughly dry everything. That not only means the exterior, which is obviously incredibly important, and it doesn't take very long. But it will also mean the interior. And that is what I have this for. I take a piece of lint-free paper towel. I cut it into quarters so that each piece is roughly the size of my hand. I then put it into cleaner. I will wrap around the end of the cleaner, and I will gently, without very much force, feed it in as far as I can into the tuning slide. In order to clean my valves, I'll make sure that I remove the entire valve from the top and the bottom. I'll take a paper towel, fold it in half, and then twist it. I'll take the instrument. I will feed the paper towel through. Until it comes out the other end. I then take that other end, and you can see the dirt and debris that comes out of the valve, and I pull it through. I then will take and I will wipe down the two places where the bottom of the valve and the top of the valve screw in. I'll then repeat that process on the other two valves. Once I have wiped out all three valve casings, I have cleaned out the inner slides and the exterior parts of the slides, as well as the entire slide that goes into the instrument. I've cleaned the valves, and I've made sure everything is dried. I am now ready to reassemble the instrument. I always start with the tuning slides, and I always start with the main tuning slide. I use white lithium grease because it is thin and allows for the tuning slides to move quite easily. It doesn't take very much. I take a dab and I spread it thoroughly. I then make sure that I put the correct slide in. I typically put it in, and then I twist to allow the valve casing to spread the grease more thoroughly. I repeat the process with the other slide, but I make sure that it's in its own casing. Once that is completed, I go ahead and I insert the slide in the manner that it actually goes into the instrument. In putting the valve slides in before the valves, I don't have to worry about back pressure. All of my slides should move freely. The second valve I don't worry about. That's not used in tuning most often, especially on a student instrument. I'll now go ahead and I will reassemble each of my valves, and I will go ahead and I will place them in. I'm going to start with the third valve. I will start with the bottom cap, replacing that. Because I do not want to cross-thread it, I put it on very gently, and if I hit any resistance, I take it off and try again. Before I oil my valves to put back in, I want to make sure I reassemble them. I first put on my felt. Then I put on the top screw cap, making sure that the threads that I'm going to need, which are right here, in this case they're on the exterior, are facing down. I then put on the pearl, and again, just like with the bottom cap, I do not want to force it. Once those three pieces have been put in place, I'll then take my valve oil And I'll go ahead and I'll apply a liberal coating of valve oil onto the valves. You cannot put too much valve oil on. Any excess will simply come out the bottom of the valve casing through the hole, which is designed to allow dirt and debris out. This is the third valve slide. If I look in, I can see that there are grooves. I want to make sure that I line up the groove, which is right here, with the groove here, which is on the bottom, so that I have as little play as possible when I put it in. It should move nicely. This one does. I'm ready to go ahead and repeat the process with my second valve and my first. Once I've finished assembling all of my valves and all of my tuning slide casings, I should be able to blow freely through the trumpet without any resistance when I push down any of the valves, and that tells me I have assembled it correctly. This trumpet is good to play. I'll now replace the third valve slide ring, the first if I have one, and anything else that I may have